What can you expound on or point to as far as what is currently in place? And I mean, how would you summarize what is under the Parks and Recreation Management?
So I think we have a amazing Parks and Recreation system here in the city of Grand Junction that we have, and we have a lot to be proud of. The 35 developed parks that ranges from your regional facilities, which are Canyon View, Las Colonias, Lincoln Park, down to your more community level, which are like Eagle Rim Park and some of the more community-sized 15 to 20 acre size parks, down to the small, more pocket parks. So we offer a lot in terms of our developed park system. But we also have, in addition to that, a lot of other infrastructure that we provide for the community's benefit, like those trails that you mentioned. It's really exciting to see trail expansion. Like, for example, we just got funding from Great Outdoors Colorado to help us, working with the Colorado West Land Trust, extend the trail that currently goes from downtown to the Lunch Loop Trailhead all the way up to South Camp. And so we'll be able to complete the Redlands Loop. And so
Welcome to the Koolers Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and I'm excited to have you join me as I interview community members and business leaders from the communities in which I live, work, and serve through my business Cooler Garage Doors. We're going to bring you highlights on characters in our communities. Why? Because community matters, and I want to know more about who is behind our business and leadership in order to understand and support the community fabric that our relationships make up. And collectively, we can build stronger communities that support our lifestyles, our youth, and our health.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Koolers Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and today I have Ken Sherbenou joining. He's the Parks and Recreation Director for the Grand Junction, or for the city of Grand Junction, excuse me. Ken, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Matt, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Excited to be here.
It's such a pleasure to get to know new faces and new folks. You and I have not met or talked too much prior to this. So I'm curious, where did you grow up, Ken?
So I'm a Colorado native, third generation. I guess my kid's the fourth generation. Grew up on the Front Range and went to school at University of Colorado and worked for Denver Parks and Rec for a little while, was a Parks and Rec consultant over there. And then I came to this side of the hill and was in Montrose for almost a decade, and I've been here for about 3.5 years. So
right on.
That's kind of the quick of my story.
Did you study Parks and Rec and management specifically in school?
It's a great question. My undergrad was political science and economics.
Okay.
So I actually used those degrees to kind of look at Parks and Recreation through the lens of its economic impact, as well as understanding how to navigate the political landscape to help Parks and Recreation progress as far as possible. My master's degree is in public administration, and that's where I had a little bit more specialty focus on Parks and Recreation. One of my big projects during my master's degree was doing some consulting work for Parks and Rec, for actually Denver Parks and Rec, that led to a future position with them. So that's where some of my specialty knowledge comes from in Parks and Recreation related to my education.
Yeah. What a really cool combination. Because my understanding is it is an interweaving of some politic pieces, economics. Parks and Rec does have a huge economic impact on communities.
Yeah, I'd like to think that the lens that I come with has been useful in my career. I think that you're spot on, that there's a tremendous amount of economic impact that happens from communities that have strong Parks and Recreation systems. Going back to your first question about where I grew up, I actually grew up in Littleton, and we had the South Suburban Parks and Recreation District, and that entity was core to my upbringing. Participation with youth basketball, like my son starts on tonight with his first experience in our youth basketball program with Grand Junction Parks and Rec. As well as with swimming and all sorts of activities, going to the rec center in Littleton where I grew up. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was actually going to have a pretty big impact on the career that I would pursue. I will say that I fortunately do work with a lot of folks with a specific Parks and Recreation degree. So a lot of the staff on my team really know how to well organize activities that we provide at our different facilities. And I think what I bring to the table is kind of from an educational experience perspective, provides another way to view our system and to help it grow and to help it mature. And it's wonderful to be here in Grand Junction because there's a lot to be proud of, a lot of amazing facilities, but we also have some that are missing or need improvement. So it's really fun to work on that for the community's benefit.
I love that. And I would agree, there's a lot of opportunities within Grand Junction. And, when I go onto the website and I start seeing 350 acres of developed parks and 21 miles of trails, like, it's significant. What can you expound on or point to as far as what is currently in place? And I mean, how would you summarize what is under the Parks and Recreation management?
So I think we have a amazing Parks and Recreation system here in the city of Grand Junction that we have, and we have a lot to be proud of. The 35 developed parks that ranges from your regional facilities, which are Canyon View, Las Colonias, Lincoln Park, down to your more community level, which are like Eagle Rim Park, and some of the more community-sized 15 to 20 acre size parks, down to the small, more pocket parks. So we offer a lot in terms of our developed park system, but we also have, in addition to that, a lot of other infrastructure that we provide for the community's benefit, like those trails that you mentioned. It's really exciting to see trail expansion. Like, for example, we just got funding from Great Outdoors Colorado to help us, working with the Colorado West Land Trust, extend the trail that currently goes from downtown to the Lunch Loop Trailhead all the way up to South Camp. And so we'll be able to complete the Redlands Loop. And so we are very involved in supporting trail development. We're very involved in horticulture and providing all the beautiful flowers that you see downtown, as well as in our public spaces, the roundabouts and medians, those sorts of things within the parks themselves. So there's a lot that goes into Parks and Rec that's more than just the developed parks.
Yeah, I absolutely get that. And in one of the articles, I was doing a little research on you before this conversation, and I pulled out a quote that I just love. And play is serious business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, I'm remembering the article you're referencing. I think my message was to emphasize that it gives a lot, it adds a lot to the quality of life in a community. And your accessibility to quality places to connect and be active is extremely important for the strength of communities. I think that you look at some of our facilities that are really highly utilized, like Canyon View Park. That was a dream 20 years ago, and there was some amazing community leaders that had the foresight to develop that 110-acre epicenter of our community. And now we have thousands. We have 5,000 to 6,000 people visit that park every weekend in the spring and in the fall for soccer, lacrosse, football. That amazing playground that we have that's I think is kind of like a Disneyland of the Western Slope. And we have these amazing facilities that add so much to people's experience here. And it's really wonderful, and it's really an honor to be a part of providing those great services.
Yeah, I love the passion. How do we measure whether it's an economic impact or, I just think of even mental health and protective factors in a community. Parks and Rec are a part of that. Are there like specific measure points that you guys focus on as far as being able to like say, here's an impact that we're making in the positive direction?
Yeah, I love that focus on measurability, because that definitely is a big focus of mine professionally, is to try to quantify our level of service. On the recreation side, that's a lot easier to do because we can count how many people sign up for youth basketball, how many people sign up for the adult softball program, or swim lessons, or come to some of our indoor facilities. When it comes to outdoor facilities, it's a lot more of a challenge to really understand how much utilization there is on trails or access to the parks. And so that's something that we work on to try to understand how to best continue to serve the community. It makes me think of two things. Your great question makes me think of two things. One is the Parks and Recreation and Open Space Master Plan that we just adopted in 2021, that City Council adopted in 2021. That grew out of a tremendous amount of public input and feedback through surveys and focus groups and public meetings that really helped us understand what the highest needs were of the community. And so that's one of the ways that we understand how to invest our finite resources to best serve the community. The other thing you made me think of is your question about mental health. And that makes me think of the pandemic and makes me think about all the stress and increased stress that came out of the pandemic, and what a lifeline Parks and Recreation open space was for folks going through that tough time.
Yeah. And that is likely something that has created an influx. I've seen it up in Gunnison. I see it down in Grand Junction. People are leaving some of the more populated zones of cities and coming to the western slope of Colorado. Is that impacting the plan? Is it shifting anything, or is it just something to observe and be attentive to?
Yeah, I think it's definitely impacting the plan. That translates into greater demand and greater need, and really lights a fire under us to be as responsive as we can to try to meet that additional new demand. I'll tell you that we're very fortunate in 2021, after the Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan was adopted by City Council. There was an election for legalization of cannabis within the city of Grand Junction. And when the voters asked of that, we made sure to tell them what we do with the additional tax revenue that would be generated if they decided to legalize.
Yeah.
Just as Palisade and tobacco has been legal for quite some time. And we actually put in the ballot language that devoted the tax revenue from marijuana sales to Parks and Recreation, and to help us meet that increased demand that we are seeing from the community. And as people move here, they're looking for quality of life amenities. They're looking for pickleball courts. They're looking for trails. They're looking for all sorts of facilities that help enhance their quality of life.
That's right. It's a huge attractor. And just as a side note, I find it interesting, you mentioned the cannabis tax, and that is such a potential resource, a little bit double-edged in some ways. I found it interesting. I was our county's substance abuse prevention director for Gunnison County in 2012 when the state legalized, and Gunnison opened up relatively quickly. Mesa County and Grand Junction held out, and I just find some of the dynamics fascinating in how that all plays. And yet there's that potential resource, if done well, to put in those taxes that can ultimately build other protective factors and continue building resources for the community.
I think you're exactly right. You're spot on. That's, I think, what the voters wanted to see when they're contemplating legalization, about how it would help our community. I think the conclusion was that we have the negatives that come from cannabis use and consumption, especially since most municipalities had legalized already in the state of Colorado, and they wanted to see some benefit come out of that use that was here already. Also say too that there's a lot of advantage to being late to the game, because I think our entity has studied and really understood what went well in other places and what didn't go so well.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to position us to be in a better spot once shops do open up here, so that we're handling it, we're managing it responsibly.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of learning that could be extracted from other communities for going forward. We have a little bit of movement on a local community rec center. We know that a lot of communities around Grand Junction, there's one up here in Gunnison, and Fruta and Montrose. And what can you share on Grand Junction's process for putting together a community rec center?
Yeah, Matt, that's a great question. So the city council has referred a question to the ballot for April 4th. Since it has been referred to the ballot, I really, as staff member, need to be careful about how I handle that question that I think a lot of people want to know answers to. So kind of what I'm telling folks, since I can't go into a lot of the detail on the plan, is to refer folks to our website. We have a tremendous amount of information on the planning process on the Community Rec Center at the city website. So if you go to gjcity.org and click on Parks and Rec, there's an icon that's specific for Community Rec Center. And what that does is that reflects all the planning process that has led to this ballot proposal on the April 4th ballot. And so I would encourage folks to check that out if they have questions. There is a citizens campaign that's actively involved right now, and it's really their role to help talk about the Community Rec Center.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you bringing it up because I do think a lot of people want to know. And we did our best to represent what the plan is and put that plan on our website. So
I love that.
That's where I direct folks.
Yeah, perfect. We'll include that link into our show notes so anybody listening can find it pretty easily. Ken, what are we excited about over the next few years? What do you see on the horizon? What's in development that you can share?
Gosh, that's a great question, Matt. So I think a lot of projects in the Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan get me really excited. I think, we have so much to be, again, proud of as a community with the existing trails and Canyon View and Lincoln Park that thankfully just got renovated, working with our partners with Grand Junction Baseball, better known as JUCO, as well as CMU and the School District 51. That was a wonderful thing in 2022 to be able to see these entities that serve the community and care so much about the community come together to enable that great renovation. So it's seeing progress like that gets me excited. I think Grand Junction has so much potential to continue to improve and seize upon our natural assets. We got the monument, we're at the footsteps of the Colorado National Monument, and this amazing epicenter we are for mountain biking and hiking and the like. And I'm just really excited about the future because I think that we do have a lot of opportunity to build off a lot of things that have been years in the making, like the Riverfront Trail. I mean, the Riverfront Trail was the original GOCO legacy grant. We're talking now about how to bridge that C&a-half road gap, which is one of the many projects in our Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan. So we've got those amazing facilities to build off of and continue to improve. So it's really an honor to be working to serve in this community because I do think that the next few years are going to be particularly exciting.
That's awesome. I love that. Where do you see businesses and community leaders working together for, whether it's overall parks, recreation, or any nuanced level of that? Are there collaboration zones that you see people can come together on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I obviously work real closely with our city manager, Greg Caton, and one of his big lines is Grand Junction is big enough to have resources and have potential in terms of the partnerships and the like, but it's small enough to be nimble, where you can have relationships built with your other partners, whether they're public partners like CMU or the school district or the county, or private partners like we've got the Dos Rios development that's happening right now. That's a public-private partnership where the city has worked with wonderful leaders in the business community like Jen Taylor, who had a lot of the vision for Dos Rios. And she and the city have worked to bring on another private developer called May Riegler. And they're a wonderful placemaking developer that had really focused on mixed-use development. And it's wonderful to see their plans come to fruition and to continue to develop the public side and the public park down at Dos Rios. We have the new bike playground that's down there now, and we'll be installing a destination level playground here in the next couple months down there at Dos Rios, as well as a splash park, and continuing to do some riverfront improvements, doing a Playa Dos Rios, Dos Rios Beach. So it's wonderful to see that collaboration happening in public-private partnership with endeavors like Dos Rios. I think that there's just more opportunity just like that, so that we're really a partner with the private sector and really supporting a lot of the things that are happening in Grand Junction from a number of different places, from development, from housing projects like the Eddy has been such a great leverage that grew out of Las Colonias and all the improvement that happened down there, with the original anchor going in being the amphitheater, and all the vision from the Schraders, from Bonsai, with the river park. And it's just really cool to see progress like that, and then see that progress beget more progress.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact, I think it's spot on, it's Grand Junction, large enough to have resources, and it is such a tight-knit community, which gives it this nimbleness. And it's such a cool part of time in the city's history for a lot of that. And as we all know, like, change is the only constant, so we're in an influx of change, and that can bring its own challenges along with opportunities.
Yeah, and that's where I think some responsible planning is really important, and some foresight. I think we obviously work real closely with the other city departments, and our community plan and development, as well as public works, really have a lot of foresight on how to manage growth responsibly, and trying to encourage infill development, and looking at our greatest needs when it comes to our road system. And of course, they have a lot of projects happening right now, which of course are a little painful in the short term when you're going through construction. But man, after those new connections open up, it has a huge benefit.
I love that. Ken, this has been a great conversation. How might people listening that want to get either involved or learn more about Parks and Rec and the resources that are available, how might people get in touch?
Yeah, so I'll just put a quick plug in with our activity guide. This is the way that we, I think, most effectively communicate with our community. It captures all the different programs and services that we have currently available. So there is an emphasis on talking about facilities that are always available, like our developed parks, or like our trails, like the work that our forestry division does with managing over 37,000 public trees in the parks and street trees. But it also has a lot of information on current program offerings. And of course, there's a seasonality to the recreation side of the shop. And so programs do vary based upon the season, and the activity guide reflects what those current opportunities are. So that's really one of the best ways that people can understand what services are available to them and how they can take advantage of them. And there's also specific contacts on whatever area of interest that folks want to get involved in, whether it's the arts and culture. We have an arts and culture commission that oversee a lot of the public art in our community. That's under Parks and Rec. We have a variety of boards, like our Parks and Rec Advisory Board, who was centrally involved in the planning on the PROS plan, and then the CRC plan subsequent to that. We've got another number of different ways the folks can get involved on a volunteer basis. So I would just encourage folks, if they're interested, to look at the activity guide and find out who they need to speak with about how to get involved.
Awesome. I love that. Well, I certainly appreciate your leadership, your management, and a shout out to your team, because I know it's not a solo effort.
Indeed.
As we close, is there any final parting thoughts that you'd like to share, like folks to know about?
Gosh, Matt, we've covered a lot. I think it's just a genuine appreciation on the part of myself and my team for being able to serve the community. I really appreciate your mention of my team. I have a lot of staff that have been with our department for quite some time, and they've gone through a lot of evolution. And it's again, I think a wonderful time to be in Parks and Rec in Grand Junction. And I think that we have a lot of gratitude about the community's confidence and trusting us to oversee and manage these major resources that are so important to our community, like the stadium, like the amphitheater, like Canyon View. And so I think that's probably what I leave folks with, is just that gratitude for entrusting us to maintain the public resources that make Grand Junction an even better place to live, work, and play.
Yeah, I love that. And they certainly do add value on so many different levels. So can't state it any better. Ken, thank you so much for your time today. We'll make sure to include in our show notes, a link to Parks and Recreation website. And again, thank you for keeping the lands beautiful and available.
Absolutely, Matt. That's our job. Thank you so much for your interest and your great questions. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Awesome.